Harpalani and CA World to this platform for the benefit of all the students. They are going to give today a session on paper presentation. They're going to guide you on how to give a paper, how to research about it, and things that can motivate you to give a paper presentation. We have Miss Shambhavi today to give introduction of CA Devesh Harpalani sir.
Good afternoon. CA Divesh Harplani is a chartered accountant by qualification. He's currently an associate at one of the top guns in the field of private equity, none other than the Advent PE Advisors Private Limited. He qualified as a chartered accountant in July 2021 by securing an All India rank 13 in CA final and securing All India rank 6 at CA India. He has even represented ICI at 34th International CA Student Conference held at Colombo, Sri Lanka. He has served as a jury member at Best Presentation Competition organized by the Ahmedabad branch. He has been awarded in 4 CA student conferences out of the 6 papers presented by him at different cities, including the first runner-up at International CA Student Conference, Pune. He is successfully running a YouTube channel called CA Inside Angel. The seminar would be fell short of time to speak about his achievements. He has always loved public speaking and mentoring our fraternity by addressing various issues faced by students. We are delighted to welcome you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Shambhavi, Khyati, the entire Wicasa Vasai team. I've always been glad speaking to the CA community and always happily welcome the invitation from the Vasai team. Actually, let's get straight into it, and I think we can keep coming back talking about the Wicasa Vasai team and how good it is, and little bit of marketing about their conference as well, but I'll be throughout the tenure of the webinar. For now, we can get started right away. So the way we've kind of planned this webinar is for the first hour or so, it will be me who will be speaking on the topic, followed by Isha, who will be sharing her words of wisdom on the same topic. In between, just before I end my monologue, I might just open the window for questions. So I think if you have any questions, just hold those questions until I ask you to ask those questions. And what will be very good if you guys can turn on your cameras. I think the Wicasa Vasai team is leading from the front as always with their cameras on. And just as I said this, Rupali turned off her camera. Just kidding. Anyway, so guys, please turn on your cameras because that will make the session more interactive and I'll not feel that I'm speaking to a black screen. But yeah, let's get started in the interest of time. Just give me a second. I am just projecting my screen. Yeah, just let me know if and when it's visible. Is it visible? Perfect. Yeah, so perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so before we go ahead, one fact or one coincidence. So me and Isha had shared the stage back in the National Talent Hunt 2021, just before my CA final results. Probably my last, or the second last competition as a CA student. That's how. So the national elocution, to be precise. And one more fact, in fact, a very interesting fact, which probably I would have shared in the next few slides. But since I'm speaking about my CFN results, an interesting fact over here is, which also speaks about my passion towards public speaking or paper presentation in particular. I had presented a paper in Ghaziabad CA Students Conference just a day prior to my CA final result. So 13 September 21 is when I got my CA final results in the morning. In the afternoon, let's say, and just the day prior on 12th evening, I was presenting a paper in Ghaziabad, and then the next day morning, I took an early flight back home, so on and so forth. So basically, my last day as a CA student, I spent, in a CA students conference. So that's how much I've been fond about CA student conferences, and that's my love for conferences, and which is one of the reasons, I'm here, and this brings me here to share how, how good as a concept these conferences are, and you all must participate. But I think let's go step by step and baby steps. For a lot of you, The concept of student conferences would itself be, like a new thing. You probably don't know what a student conference is. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to speak, participate, sit, do nothing? Are we eligible? Are we not? What are the different types of conferences? What is the structure, so on and so forth. So I'll try giving you a brief overview about all of these, and obviously Isha can cover, her bit of thoughts here as well. But I'll just give you just what CA student conferences are. So basically, conference is, let's say, a 2-day event where there'll be a lot of sessions, both technical and non-technical sessions. I'll come to that in a bit. But there's a lot of speakers who come and speak in the conference, both speakers who have years of wisdom and experience, as well as students like you and me. I mean, I was 12 me, but I still like to consider myself a student in this regard. So students like you and me who get a chance to come to the stage and present your thoughts on a particular topic. So essentially, the aim of a student conference is from the outside to impart knowledge, do a lot of networking, etc., etc. But the hidden aim over here, which is very important, is especially for paper presenters and to be paper presenters like you all, to just get that experience of how is it like speaking on a stage in front of like 200 2000 people. And also for the participants, it is a good experience in understanding how these things work so that they can take that bit of wisdom and on the next conference they can apply and come. So again, coming back, it's almost a 2-day event filled with a lot of fun. But that I'm sure the Wicasa team will market enough on how much the fun is. And even I'll try talking about that in a bit. But talking about the formal structure over here, it's filled a lot of technical and non-technical sessions. So what do technical sessions mean? So there'll be a session on, for example, and don't hold me to this, there could be a session on, let's say, taxation as a topic, or let's say, chat GPT, or let's say artificial intelligence as a topic. There could be a technical session on audit as a topic. So there'll be like 5 odd or 6 odd technical sessions spread across 2 days. And there'll be a lot of subtopics within that. So let's say if it is a tax, you might want to talk about the new TDS section that has come into picture, or the updated returns that have come into picture, so on and so forth. So there'll be a lot of subtopics within these technical sessions, and you as a paper presenter are supposed to come and speak on these topics on the stage as a paper presenter. So that is the gist of what CA student conferences are for you as a student. There's a lot more to it, but right now this is what you can take away. There's a lot of non-technical sessions also. For example, there's a session where you get a chance to directly interact with the top folks at BOS and ask them questions. There's a session where you get a chance to probably interact with a lot of rankers and who get to share their bit of knowledge, etc. A lot of motivational sessions as well. So the conference has mix of topics, themes, etc. But all in all, it's a lot of fun. More importantly, it's a very good networking opportunity because, as you are all aware, it's CA is a correspondence course, and outside of probably your classes or articleship, you hardly get an opportunity to interact with other CA students out there. Obviously, Wicasa or any student association for that matter has been doing great work in this regard. But then I think CA student conferences give you that platform to go ahead and interact with fellows out there, which make you feel okay, you're not alone in the race. And there are pretty much a lot of people who are running in the race. But having said that, so that's the broad concept of CA student conferences, and I leave the rest to Isha to cover. Uh, so far as types of CA student conferences are covered, and this is a bit theoretical part, you might get bored and all, but just bear with me for like next 10 minutes and I'll cover all of this because it is important for you all. I'm literally starting from like 101 of CA student conferences because it is important for you all to first understand what CA student conferences essentially are. And then only you can understand what is a paper and what is a paper presentation, what is your role as a paper presenter, so on and so forth. Types of CA student conferences, broadly 3 types. So there's an international conference that Shambhavi was just talking about that I had participated in. There is a national conference, and then there is a regional conference. What is exactly the difference in terms of the structure of these conferences? No difference at all. So it's both, all 3 of these are 2-day conferences with technical sessions, with motivational sessions, so on and so forth. The only difference is in terms of the participation that you see. So for example, the um, conferences, international conference that is organized, that there are delegates from Sri Lanka and Nepal who are invited to ICI's International CA Student Conference. Similarly, when Nepal and Sri Lanka CA institutes organize their international conference, they invite students from India, ICI basically, which one of these conferences I had the fortune of attending. So basically, that is an international conference within India, but that is just in terms of the participation. Paper presentation, technical sessions, etc., remains the same as it is. So far as national CA students conferences are concerned, again, no difference as compared to an international conference. The only difference is all the attendees will be Indian CA students. That's the only thing. And third is regional CA student conferences. I think earlier it used to be the same as national CA student conferences, but I think now ICA has created some distinction over here, and the CASA team can go ahead and confirm. But in my head, the differentiation that has been created is regional conferences are now limited to either that city, town, or that state for that matter, or at max that region. So let's say if it is WIC, WRC, that is something that the Wicasa team can anyways confirm. But virtually there was no difference earlier in terms of a regional or a national conference. This is from a student perspective. Obviously, from a branch perspective, there is a big difference because the budgets and the size of the event, etc. A lot of those things differ, but not that you students have to be concerned about it anyways. Yeah. Next is so basically types. Now, if you get an opportunity to present in a regional versus a national versus an international, obviously you should try to present in an international or a national conference because the stage will be bigger for you, the number of attendees will be more, etc. But then at the same time, you might want to start small as well. So you might want to start with a regional conference, but hardly matters. All I will say is the moment you get an opportunity, just grab it. Don't let the type of the conference come in way of you, presenting versus not. What is the structure of these conferences? What is the eligibility? What are the topics? What is the competition? I'll cover in a bit. The next 3 points, which is structure, eligibility, and topics, let me just cover. Let me just show you one of the sample, kind of flyers of a conference, which I think Wicasa was saying also must have released now. And by the way, this is very, very dated because this is back when I used to just when I started presenting papers. So this is from 2019. I think you can see my PDF, I'm guessing, right? Just nod. That's fine. You can, right? Perfect. Yeah. So you can read it over your national conference. This is in Indore. These are Indore. These are the dates, etc. So what I was saying is essentially this is day one, technical session one, special session one. You can see it's BOS. Then there's a session on something role of CAs in transforming in India. There's a technical session two, motivational session one, so on and so forth. So there's like it's spread across 2 days. Okay. Now there are a lot of subtopics which I was referring to. Let's say if the broader session is auditing, and subtopics are something like this: internal audit, what's revenue recognition, so on and so forth, right? So these are the subtopics. When you as a paper presenter present the paper, you will be presenting on one such topic. So if there are like 15 topics, there'll be 15 paper presenters who will be presenting their paper in the conference. The next thing is what is the eligibility? So the eligibility is those who are pursuing their articleship but have not qualified as a chartered accountant yet, which is obvious because if you qualified as a chartered accountant, you're no longer a CA student, right? Because if that were not to be a criteria, I would have still gone ahead and presented papers. But yeah, so basically, and even if you couldn't qualify your exams, you can attend until 1 year from the end of your articleship, which means from the start of your articleship until 1 year till the end of your articleship, subject to you not having qualified CA exams until then. So this is the qualification criteria, as simple as that. I don't think anyone would have a question over here. The other thing is now, let's say you might want to think, okay, if it is an indoor conference, only CA students from Indore are invited. No, that's not the case, and I believe that's not the case for Vasai as well. So let's say if you want to present a paper in Indore, you can definitely send out our paper, and you might think, okay, if my paper gets selected and if I go there, तो आने जाने का बहुत खर्चा होगा. आप ये सोचोगे, right? But that is where the institute comes in and says, outstation paper presenters will be reimbursed to the extent of whatever. These guidelines keep changing and this might be dated. I don't know what the current guidelines are, although to the best of my knowledge, the guidelines have remained the same, but hardly matters. So the point is ICI is supposed to ideally reimburse you for your commute cost plus a daily allowance of whatever amount. Earlier it used to be 1500, could be 1500 now as well, which means it is a fully paid trip ideally. I mean, unless you fly in a flight or something, that's a different thing. It's a fully paid trip that ICI will sponsor you if you are willing to go to that particular city and present your paper, and obviously subject to your paper getting selected. Once again, sorry, before I go ahead, would request everyone to just turn on their cameras. I know it's a Sunday morning and all of you must be drowsy and yawning, but that's fine. I'm very fresh and that won't pull my spirits down. So at least all those of you who can, please do turn on your cameras. That'll be easier to interact. Thanks, Kashyap. Thanks, Nishika. Anyway, so let me come back. So in terms of eligibility, I think most of you, I'm assuming, must be pursuing your articleship. So most of you are eligible. And if someone who's not yet started his or her articleship, you soon will. So whenever you do start your articleship, you are eligible. Topics. The twist in the tail is basically earlier the topics used to be very technical, the way I showed it to you, right? But now the topics are very, I wouldn't say they are not technical anymore, but they are more intuitive, logical, new age topics where, you'll speak about chat GPT and you'll speak about blockchain, cybersecurity, you'll speak about, and not just technology related. It could be a lot of, let's say, how, for example, the question could also be how much are soft skills important for CAs or CA students, hypothetically, right? So this is technically not um, you know, a technical topic per se. It is related to soft skills, etc. But increasingly now ICI conferences, I'm not sure about what the topics are for Wicasa was saying, and I think one of them can towards the end of this session project those topics as well. But these topics have seen that paradigm shift, which earlier it used to be super technical, and now it's, if not fully non-technical, a mix of technical and non-technical. So this is what the topics are. Structure of these conferences, I did broadly tell you about that. Basically, it's a mix of technical, non-technical sessions. But as a paper presenter, you will be a part of these technical sessions only. Like you'll present your paper in one of these technical topics. So far as the last point, which is the competition is concerned, like I said, there are like about 10, 15 paper presenters. In fact, could be up to 20 as well. And the way these conferences are set up is it's a sort of a competition. So basically, it could be either session specific. So let's say if it is a session on taxation, right? So it could be one best paper presenter out of three who end up presenting in that session. So I think Isha had won in one of those sessions which she presented in, versus there is an overall best paper presenter prize also. So that differs from conference to conference. So let's say in the international conference Pune, where I had presented in, out of 15 paper presenters, they just declared the overall best three across all sessions. So I was the first runner up over there, right, which means the second prize winner. So that is the whole competition bit of it. So the point here is, not just do you get a chance to present your paper, but then there's also a cherry on cake that if and when you end up
बेस्ट इधर हो गया तो
are you asking if you end up winning the best paper presenter, then what happens next? Even if you, so okay, two things. One is, it's these competitions. So if you end up winning, let's say, right, so that is more of like a one thing that you get to write on your CV, very important. And this, by the way, has great value because you can see people around you, how many of you have extracurricular achievements or even participate in extracurriculars. Very few,
बहुत
being very honest, it is a very it is very intuitive for all of us to know that not a lot of CA students participate in extracurricular events, competitions. So at the first place, just participating and presenting a paper is a big deal in itself. So that's something that you really get to write on your CV, and it is greatly valued, trust me. But in fact, if you go ahead and win, then that's a cherry on the cake, and that's an added advantage. Having said that, so far as you winning in a, just give me a sec. So far as you winning in a international conference is concerned, that is something that does have an added advantage. So the top three, winners of an international conference at ICI get a chance to present, or rather be a part of the conference at Sri Lanka. So the reason I was kind of selected for the conference at Sri Lanka was because I was the second best paper presenter at the Pune International C Student Conference of ICI. So that is one of those advantages. बट इफ यू आस्क मी बेस्ट प्रेजेंटर विकासा वसई के कॉन्फ्रेंस में मिला तो क्या होगा, अरे आपको ट्रॉफी मिलेगा, सर्टिफिकेट मिलेगा, यू गेट टू राइट ऑन योर सीवी. So that's the added advantage. But having said that, winning is not everything. I think you having reached the stage of presenting your paper, that in itself is kind of honestly a big achievement, trust me, because a lot of people end up sending their papers for selection, and not a lot of these end up getting selected. So now let me just voice over what is the exact procedure. I'm not sure if it is there on the next slide, but I'll just voice over as to what are you supposed to do. Okay, fair. So now I think you understand broadly as to what the concept of paper presentation and conferences is, right? Now let's say if you are supposed to, if you really think you want to present a paper, and by the way, my real good suggestion advice is that all of you in the tenure of your articleship, should present as many papers as you can, because it's one of those great extracurricular competitions that ICI has amongst the very few. So there's National Talent Hunt and there is conference. There are a few others as well, but broadly these two are the major ones. So it'll be a good thing to write on your CV. But having said that, if you decide that I want to, send a paper into a conference, what do? You keep an eye on all the student conferences, let's say Instagram pages, groups, etc., where you come to know that what are those conferences where which are being organized. So let's say hypothetically in this case, Wicasa is organizing a conference in the first week of December, right? So they will turn out a flyer saying, these are the topics and this is the last day. Say hypothetically, I don't know what the last date is, but let's say the last date to send your papers is 10 November. So by 10th November, you have to choose a topic. You have to make a paper. We'll come to what is a paper, but you basically make a paper and you send out that paper to that given mail ID until 10th November, after which a jury of basically a panel of juries, etc., will evaluate your paper. So let's say if there is a topic, जिस पे 5 papers आए, and then they will select which is the best paper out of those 5 papers, and only the best paper will get selected and get a chance to present in the conference. Which means if there are 15 topics, right? So in 15 topics, there will be, let's say hypothetically, 100 papers that will be sent. With each topic, let's say sending like 20 papers. So now within those, let's say those 20, so uh, sorry, there are 20 topics. Within each topic, there are 5 papers. Now, within those 5 papers, there could be hypothetically in a topic which is more common, and there are 10 people who send a paper, versus there is a topic where only 2 of them have sent, so your chances are high. So it is very tricky, and that's how you need to choose a topic, but that will come to that next. So in terms of how the process is, at the first place, you see a flyer, and this is the stage where Wicasa was saying is they've released a flyer saying these are the topics, and this is the last day to send those papers, right? Now, your duty is to write the paper until the last day and send it across to that mail ID, post which the panel of jury will evaluate the paper on that topic and select those paper presenters, post which you have to make a presentation and go to the stage and present, post which out of, let's say 15 paper presenters, the best few will be awarded, which is fine. That part of it is honestly relatively material. I think to reach to the stages, much more important. That is the bit that you can really go ahead and write on your CV. So I think this bit in terms of what the timeline is and what presentations are in general, I think that bit is probably clear to all of you. Now, what is a paper? I think that is a crucial question which will be running in your mind. ये paper होता क्या है? ये तो कब से बोले जा रहे paper presentation ये क्या A4 size का paper लेके भेजना होता है क्या? What is it exactly? So I think that honestly is a crucial question, and even I used to be bothered with that question until I really figured कि paper होता क्या है. And what I will really encourage, by the way, before I go ahead, is that whether or not you guys end up presenting a paper in this conference that Wicasa Vasai is organizing, I think at least all of you should go ahead and at least attend that conference, because you'll at least come to know how the flow of the conference is, how do people go ahead and present their papers, because that will really motivate you to say, acha, is tarah hota hai, maybe let me do it the next time. Right. So that is what I did. So back when I started 2019 January, there was an international conference in Ahmedabad. I did not send a paper despite being an international conference, and despite me being in Ahmedabad, I'd never sent a paper at the first place because I never knew what the concept of paper presentations was. And luckily for me, a couple of my seniors in articleship had sent the paper, and then they explained me as to this is how the paper has to be, so on and so forth. So let me do this. Let me just present a souvenir of one of these conferences that I was a part of, which is the Guwahati CA Students Conference, which is the first one, in fact, that I presented. So, by the way, what is this? This is essentially a souvenir paper book, whatever you call, which is a compilation of all of the papers that were presented in that particular conference. So, let's say this is how the flyer used to look like, right? They've just printed it. This is the broad paper book index of what all is there. तो इसमें थोड़ा सा managing committee के बारे में होगा, BOS के बारे में होगा, and then finally speakers profile and technical papers. Remaining photo gallery and all is fine. So let me just go to page 100 randomly. Yeah. So now if you see here, बहुत बड़ा paper है, हाँ. So this is the topic. This is the technical session. She is the paper presenter, and then this is the paper that she had written. Let me run you slightly slow. So he started with YGST. How does the input tax credit system work? What can it be set off against? What are the eligibility conditions? Okay, so on and so forth. So she's written like a good 4, 5, 6 page का paper over here. ठीक है. So वैसे photos है इसलिए आपको बड़ा लग रहा है. It is ideally with photos it is a 7, 8 pages, and without photos it is a 5 pages. Okay, so this is broadly what a paper should look like. Let me show another paper. So this is another paper. इसमें photos का में text बहुत ज्यादा है, right? So now if you ask me, and I know I'm too ahead of myself when I say this, now if someone asks me कि what is the ideal way of writing a paper, there's no ideal way of writing a paper. आपने आगे पीछे के दो पेपर देख लिए, दोनों में there was a huge difference in writing those papers. She had used a lot of photographs versus he has not used a single photograph. But he is very professionally given a lot of references, so on and so forth, right? So there could be numerous ways of writing a paper, and what I will do is this is my paper, coincidentally it's here. So this is the paper that I had written back then. There was a talk of a new income tax law. So I had kind of been used a mix of both. So thode bahut photos bhi and text bhi. So it is visual also, but then so you see headings are clearly marked, subheadings, subtopics, etc. A little bit of this art as well. Uh, these pointers, table, etc. And then finally, towards the end, the conclusion. So the point here is, now if you think what is I'll send across the PDF to these Wicasa folks and they can go ahead and share this anyways in public domain, so hardly matters. And I know a couple of folks have asked me questions in the chat box, but I just complete my flow and then I'll come back to questions. But yeah, so basically now coming to what a paper is. You guys have seen what a paper is, but let me simplify it for you. It is almost like a thesis oblique an essay oblique, uh, your piece of knowledge on what do you think about the topic. So now another question could be, okay, do we just type the topic on Google and paste everything? No, that is not the case. Otherwise, so how will they differentiate between people who are sending the papers? The way you should ideally go about this is, obviously, if there are few factual things, you will have to definitely, if there is a bare act, you will have to copy it from the act, right? But there's a lot of places where you'll have to put in your own inputs. You'll have to actually sit and type. You can obviously take references and you can take help from a lot of books, articles, bare act, so on and so forth. But then does not mean you simply copy paste. So in summary, it is a short form of a thesis. Thesis is usually a long book, etc. But paper is a short paper. It is supposed to be, as per ICI norms, 1500 to 2000 words, which, like I told you, if you just keep on writing these words in a Word document, it will be about 5 pages. And if you ideally would, go ahead and put photos, etc., it will go up to 7, 8, 9, depending on how many images you are putting. So there's a concept of what a paper looks like. So it is nothing but us topic pe aapka thesis. Which will go between 1500 to 2000 words. How to choose a topic, which is, I think, a very, very interesting question, and a lot of you will be faced with this question. I had 2 to 3 parameters of deciding on how to choose this topic. And by the way, I think the thing has become simpler now. I used to always prefer choosing a topic around direct tax because I was doing my articles in direct tax and I was relatively more passionate about direct tax rather than an audit जिसमें मैंने काम ही नहीं किया था. So one thing is, it is very intuitive. जो आपको आता है उस पे आप पेपर लिखोगे, आप present करोगे, like very logical, right? Second thing is a topic that you like, because only if you like a topic will you be able to passionately go to the stage and speak on that topic. That is the other thing. And I mean, for example, for me, this topic, if I were not to like what I'm speaking right now, you wouldn't have seen that passion in my voice. The third thing is, and which is, by the way, a secret sauce, if someone was to ask me, try to choose a topics in a very mischievous way. So when I say mischievous way, basically be mindful of the fact that ये topic तो सब लोग ही लेंगे, तो मैं अगर लूंगा मेरे chances are lower in getting selected in this topic, versus if there's a topic which you feel is very difficult to research on, which means लोग नहीं लेंगे ये topic. But then you go for that topic, it is very likely that you might be probably the only one who's been chosen in that topic, or one of the two people, which means your probability increases from, let's say, in a scenario which is a common topic, out of 10 papers, your likelihood is 10%, versus out of 2 papers, your likelihood is 50%. Just imagine how much your chances increase. So this is my secret sauce. I mean, not that I really benefited out of it, but I've given this suggestion to a lot of people who really benefit out of it. So just keep this in mind. In terms of research, now all of these are slightly tactical things, and I'm sure Isha will give her bit of knowledge. And honestly, one caveat, once Isha goes in and speaks, it is quite possible that in a lot of these subtopics or a lot of these aspects, Isha might have her point of view which might differ from mine. And that's where I will come in and say, there is no ideal thing to do something versus not, right? The the one thing that probably makes me eligible to come over here is because I presented papers in 6 conferences, and that is why people might call me someone who's experienced and has a right to speak on this topic. But there are a lot of people, like Isha and like others who may have presented in just 1 or 2 conferences, but at the same time have probably experienced and been through that journey. So the point here is there is no ideal way. Probably you might find a different way, but ultimately the destination is same, which is just presenting paper at the end of the day. Now, I just quickly get into it. So obviously to make a paper you'll have to research a lot, right? So what is the time that is required to research? And obviously this answer is very subjective. Few people might be very god gifted talented to make a paper in 2 hours, and now at ChatGPT so it's all the more easier. But I used to ideally take anywhere between 10 to 15 hours to do my bit of research and make a paper, which I know sounds a lot given our busy schedules. But then if you want to get on the stage and speak in front of 2000 people, उतना research तो लगेगा. You cannot think कि अरे 2 घंटे में मैं research करके भेज दूंगा, वरना तो सभी भेज देंगे. As simple as that. Next point is whether it should be, and by the way, there's a learning curve. So my first conference that I presented paper, I would have researched for 15 hours, and then last तक आते आते वो because अभी I knew कि किस तरह करना है, speed आ गया था, तो last में शायद मैंने 6 hours में भी कर लिया होगा. But then obviously first time में 10 to 15 hours लगेगा. And by the way, don't try to be super smart and just pick up ChatGPT, write a paper between 1500 to 2000 words on this topic, and it will give you a ready answer. No, don't do that, because everyone will do that. And the moment everyone does that, the jury panel also knows this. And by the way, there are ways and means to verify if the content is picked up from ChatGPT versus not. I am sure a lot of you might know this. If not, Google कर लेना, आपको पता चल जाएगा कि कोई भी content ChatGPT से आया है कि नहीं आया है, वो पता चल जाता है. Next is actually the point that I was referring. So ये थोड़ा सा dated PPT इसलिए मैंने Google versus own लिखा है. I could have written ChatGPT versus own. So whether the content has to be straight away picked up from Google or a source versus it should be your own content. The answer is it should ideally be own, but then technically you cannot write 1500 2000 words of content on your own. So there's obviously a lot of articles, books, Google search that you'll refer to, get an understanding of the topic, and then start writing what you think about that topic. So obviously you will take references, and that is fine. But what should definitely be there present in the paper is your own piece of advice, your own point of view on that topic. Otherwise, if that is missing, there's no point on you presenting that paper. Then it's just Google ka paper. Okay. So it has to be your own thing, but definitely you can research, take help of a lot of references, etc. Use of images, I think I've already shown you. There are people who use a lot of images, people who do not use images at all. My personal advice is keep it somewhere in the middle, because you never know what the jury panel likes. So if they like very visual thing and you don't have any image at all, see, an ideal paper, by the way, is in a very ideal scenario. The world of ideals, there should be no image, because if it is a paper, it is supposed to be a very professional thing. Then you don't put images at all. You can put flowcharts, etc., but not images. But having said that, ultimately आप लॉजिकली सोचोगे तो अगर जूरी में मैं हूं और मेरे को इमेजेस अच्छा लग रहा है देखने में, like visually also, so it is ideally good if you at least have 1 or 2 images, or at least 3-4 images over the course. I showed you my paper. This is how my my this thing used to be, my style used to be. In terms of flow, I showed you the flow should be very structured. So when you start with the topic, let's say ITC, something is the topic, you first of all start with what is ITC, why did it come into picture at the first place, start with limitations, etc. at the first place. So for example, one of my topics was new income tax law, need of the hour was one of my topics. So I'll talk about income tax ka thoda sa history, what are the problems in the current law, and then I will talk about what are the expectations from the new law, and then conclusion, something of that sort. So it has to be in a structured flow manner where you talk about what is the topic first, characteristics, aspects, limitations, and then you deep dive into what the topic exactly asks you to do. So for example, why income tax rates, are they counterproductive? So that was one of my topics in the International Sea Students Conference at Pune. So I started with, what was the need of the income tax at the first place? How is the history of income tax rates been in India? What are the problems with high income tax rates? And then finally, you'll come down to, what can you do about it? And with some examples. Unfortunately, I don't have that paper open. Otherwise, I would have shown you, but there's my presentation on YouTube. You can go ahead and see. So I've tried to put it in a very structured manner. So that is one flow that is required rather than going very haphazard. And this flow is not just restricted to paper. Any email that you write, anything that you do in the corporate world, everything has to be structured and go in a flow. Now, once you've made a paper, and by the way, the process here is how I used to go about it is, पहले तो जितना भी Google पे से books में से मिल रहा है सब उठा के एक जगह पे डाल दो. Then you try and structure, and then finally you start writing the paper. First is just information gathering. then structuring, and then you decide, okay, I finally want to write my paper. कुछ लोग साथ साथ में भी कर सकते हो तो ठीक है, that is fine, but then you have to be very far sighted in terms of how do you want to structure it. Now, once you've made your paper, the problem that I used to always find is between 1500 2000 words. My paper used to always go beyond 2000 words. You'll have to curtail and get it below 2000 words. The other thing is you'll have to proofread the paper if it is making sense, whether there is duplication, whether it is going in a flow, so on and so forth. So you'll have to really proofread it once, twice, preferably get it proofread from someone who's senior to you, either at the office or a colleague or a friend, whosoever. Try to proofread the paper 1 or 2 times. So this is broadly what a paper is. I could have spent more time, but I think Isha also will have her bit of knowledge here. So let me go on to the next thing. A lot of these conferences in their flyers, rather, a lot of these branches in their flyer do also ask you to send a video and a PPT. So what happens here is, now this is a very tricky situation, I'm being very honest. Especially for the video, you have to make sure the video it is at best. So video usually 2-3 minute का वो लोग मांगते हैं. So 2-3 minutes is fine. You just give a gist of the topic, an overview of the topic of what are the things that you are going to cover, what are those 1 or 2 views that you have of the topic, and then intro and conclusion. That's it. But you have to make sure you're very confident in those videos, because if you are solely selected on the basis of videos, then you have to give your best shot. So it's not like आपने paper बहुत अच्छा है but video so होगा तो चलेगा नहीं. If they are asking for a video and they watch a video, then it should be at the absolute best. So far as PPT is concerned, now this is a very tricky thing. So what happens is, and this no one has sight of, right? Like for example, hypothetically, if Wicasa was say ask for PPT, right? It is quite possible that वो लोग सिर्फ PPT के basis पे select कर ले, which means आपको PPT paper से अच्छा बनाना पड़ेगा. It is quite possible कि वो लोग PPT खोल के भी ना देखे, वो लोग सिर्फ पेपर के basis पे select कर रहे हैं, in which case PPT is useless. It is quite possible that दोनों साथ में देख रहे हैं. दोनों साथ में देख रहे is a very ideal state scenario जो नहीं होता है, to be very honest, because no one has that time in the world to go through 100 papers plus PPTs and then decide. And also it is very subjective. So what happens, it is either or. So what I used to do is, and don't hold me for this, but what I used to do is, I used to make a PPT, but a decent one, like a very quick and dirty one, rather than a very formatted, nice looking one. But then while it worked at most places, 1 or 2 places I did not get selected in the same paper, because probably the PPT was not as good and they chose me on the basis of the PPT, and that is probably the feedback that I got. So this was slightly disappointing, because अब आपके पास paper PPT दोनों बनाने का time नहीं होता है, being very honest. But then it's a call that you'll have to take what you want to do. If you have the time, ideal state is to create everything at its absolute best, to make sure your chances are increased. The next thing is profile. So they will also ask you to send your brief profile as to when you've started your articleship, where are you doing your articleship, where are you from, which city, which is very important because outstation. So there's apparently a criteria that every student, and maybe it's different for regional, but national at least there is a criteria that every branch has to have at least 50% outstation. No, at least 50% inside the city, and it's actually a 50-50 split. So that is the reason that they ask for your city. And then if possible, also if you have any previous public speaking experience, or especially if any previous student conference experience, you mention that, because that increases the credibility of your profile and has a higher chance of getting selected. Does not mean that only on the basis of the profile you'll get selected, but then let's say if hypothetically दो लोगों के papers अच्छे हैं, and if you have a better profile, then probably it's a chance that they might go ahead with you. ये भी chance है कि they might want to give a chance to someone else, but you cannot solve for everything. We'll have to solve for one thing, ठीक है? And which is ideal that you go for the best. So that's all about paper, sending them for selection. Make sure you send it within time. One very tactical thing is, काफी बार 10 नवंबर बोला है तो 10 नवंबर के 5 बजे तक आप भेज सकते हो. वो लिखा होता है, आप पूछ लिया करो. काफी लोग 10 नवंबर को रात को 12 बजे भेजेंगे और पता चला 5 बजे डेडलाइन खत्म हो गई. Although वो चला लिया जाता है, but let's not risk it. The next thing is, once you've gotten selected, you get a mail from Wicasa was say your paper has been selected, and you will be one of the paper presenters. Obviously, you are very happy because it's a big opportunity, honestly. And in fact, before going ahead, I've had the absolute fortune of presenting in front of a crowd as small as a 150-200, and as big as, just imagine what the size could have been. It was 3,500 folks. This was back in Pune, International CA Students Conference. And honestly, until that conference, I used to always probably go ahead and feel कि यार 200-500 लोग के सामने तो present कर लेंगे, not a big deal. But probably once the number crosses 1,000, I find it difficult. And one of my OC faculties had told me कि if you are comfortable speaking fluently in front of 50 people ना फिर 500 है 5,000 है 50,000 है तुमको फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. And that's what happened when I was speaking in front of 3,500 folks. It did not matter because by then I was already habituated. But that's a big big feather to have in your cap. Not that you will write this in your CV that I spoke in front of 3,500, and might as well write it. I mean, there's nothing wrong, but more of a self achievement that you would feel good about yourself. But having said that, so once your paper gets selected, you're supposed to now make a PPT, because at the end of the day, paper presentation does not really mean opening the paper in front of 3,500 people and reading that out. No, it is supposed to be a presentation. So now that you've written your paper, make a presentation out of it, and you're supposed to speak for 10 to 15 minutes. Obviously, ये वाला, it is a big matter of concern. हमेशा time खुटता है यहाँ पे भी. Few very generous branches have 15 minutes, but most likely it is 10 to 12 minutes for every branch. Usually take it at the lower end, because last moment पे time कम कर दिया जाता है, because usually conferences are short of 3. Having said that, you can, one of the folks asked me a question as to whether you can attend conferences in any part of India. Yes, you can attend conference in any branch whatsoever in India. I think at least पूरे साल में, and I think the Wicasa folks can validate me over here, but at least 35-40 conference होती है पूरे साल में, if I'm not wrong. Like each branch will have only one conference per annum, but then there are 35-40 branches who have their own CA student conferences. Having said that, so now you make your PPT. Now, a common question that I've been thrown at is, and probably early stages for you if you are, listening to this for the first time, but whether memes can be used. And I think someone had actually sent a question to Rapali, and she had forwarded to me that if it is a very technical topic, how to make it interesting and funny, because someone has to listen to you for 10 to 15 minutes. And trust me on this, speaking is very easy. And while you might think speaking in front of 3,500 people is very difficult, it is relatively very easy as compared to listening to someone for 10 to 15 minutes very attentively, because trust me, nahi ho pata hai. Now, obviously, if you are presenting, the aim is not for you to speak, but for you to explain the topic to the audience, very ideally, right? Like, I mean, आप लोग सब सोच रहे होंगे अरे मैं स्टेज पे पहुंच गया, मेरा काम खत्म. नहीं, वहां से तो काम शुरू होता है आपका. अल्टीमेटली योर एम इज टू मेक श्योर. यहाँ पे मैं आके 1 घंटा बोल के जाऊंगा, पर आपको कुछ समझ में नहीं आएगा तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, कोई मतलब नहीं है, राइट? सो नाउ yeah, there's an international conference in Ahmedabad, but don't distract me for now. Let me just complete my bit, and I'll come back on all of those things as well. But yeah, so how to make it interesting and how to make it like funny, where people might want to attend it. So first of all, by the way, strong caveat over here is student conference paper presentation, all of this is supposed to be extremely professional. आप आके jokes मार के जा रहे हो, आप आके शायरियां बोल के जा रहे हो, ideally all of this is not appreciated, very ideally. But then obviously there are few branches, few juries, few audiences who really like this over technical content. And I'll also give you an insight of how it is regionally. So if you present in South, they will appreciate a fully technical paper, and they'll literally be a pin drop silence in the entire auditorium, and even 1,500 people will listen to you. To like places like Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, Guntur, so on and so forth, they'll very attentively listen to you. Versus places like West and North, people would want some bit of fun, and people are not very fond of extremely technical topics, right? So having said that, what do you do? So let me give you 2 examples, and just let me know if you can watch this video that I am. Can you see the video? Perfect. I'm just playing the sound, and just listen to the next 15 seconds, and I'll say what I wanted to speak about.
The evasion of the taxes. Well, as we all pursuing our articleship would have rightly seen, that instead of determining the taxes on the basis of the incomes or the profits, people determine the incomes and the profits on the basis of the taxes that we are willing to pay. Well, that is the reason why someone has rightly stated that income tax returns are the most imaginative fiction being written today. Well, it is the higher.
Yeah. So basically, long story short, the point that I was trying to make over here is, now the topic was, are high income tax rates counterproductive? Now, by the nature, this topic is actually very technical, right? बट इस टॉपिक में भी आपको कोई एक फनी चीज मिल जाएगी, कोई एक आपको कोट अच्छा सा मिल जाएगा, which will actually bring a smile on the faces of everyone. For example, in this case, what I tried to do is, and not the best example by the way, but what I tried to do in this case was basically, one was the quote that, and by the way, it's an actually quote, income tax returns are the most imaginative fiction being written today. That's actually a quote, and which is true. It is all known to us, right? The other thing is, let's say when I made it relatable for the audience, as all of us pursuing our articles, you would have rightly seen that people determine their income through the taxes on the basis, or rather, on the basis of the taxes that they are willing to pay. And then we will be like, हाँ यार बात तो सही कर रहा है बंदा. For example, so that will bring a smile on your face. And by the way, more than it being funny or anything else, it has to be relatable for the audience, because only then they will be attentive. उनको कुछ समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा है, it's nowhere related to them, then why will they even be concerned? So you have to make sure, no matter how technical the topic is, try and relate it as much as possible to the audience. In fact, there was this one guy, Tabish Hassan, and he is a faculty now. But basically, Tabish, what happened is, he had a very difficult topic to present, by the way, and he presented it in such a nice manner that he ended up winning the first, the best paper presenter award in the international conference. What is his topic? His topic was whether CS can advertise, okay, or should advertise, or something of that sort. And then उसने बंदे ने he created an advertisement for CS. So दूध सी सफेदी financials में आई, something of that sort. I have that video, but unfortunately I don't have it very handy. And everyone in the audience started clapping and said once more and all of that. And usually that wouldn't happen in a paper presentation, right? People saying once more, but people are so happy. And it was an extremely technical topic, by the way, like it was related to code of ethics, etc. But then the way he presented, and it was no doubt that, and by the way, this was the end, at the end of the second day, right? Which meant people are already, their energy levels are at the absolute minimum. Despite that fact, despite their energies being so low, after this presentation, they were all jolly and up-spirited, so on and so forth. And no doubt he won the Best Paper Presenter award. And today, by the way, he's a faculty for costing and SCMP, costing for inter and SCMP for finance. So he had always been, fond of public speaking, so on and so. He got an AI10 in CA final. But anyways, coming back, so the whole point I was trying to make is, even a technical topic, there are ways and means to make it sound very interesting, funny, relatable, so on and so forth. Let me give you another example. So let me present another presentation of mine. So this was a presentation in, so by the way, I hardly use memes, I hardly use jokes, etc. I just tried to make it relatively funny when I used to be on the stage. Not funny, but relatable. But Ghaziabad conference, that was my last conference, I was like, let us experiment over here. So what I did is I used so the topic was intellectual property, as you can rightly see. What I did is I used some memes over here, and I'll tell you what. So यहाँ पे importance of IP, and then something I was trying to say, that ideally you would want to get it legally patented, whatever, right? Because you would want to say बिल्कुल risk नहीं लेने का, something of that sort, because companies say बिल्कुल risk नहीं लेने का. So now if you see, it's not an absurd use of a meme. It is actually fitting into the story, right? It is fitting into the structure, into the flow. No jury would think, this is unprofessional. Why? It is not. This meme is nowhere unprofessional. It is actually fitting into the story. Similarly, types of intellectual property. So it's trying to explain the difference between intellectual, rather trademark and patent and copyright. I was like, ये all सब same ही लगता है ना, right? जिसकी तरह. Something of that sort. So one is trademark, one is copyright, one is patent. So something of that. And I was like, okay, this is copyright. Mona Lisa painting is also copyright. Majnu Bhai painting is also copyright. Then when you use memes like this, now just imagine you being in the audience, everyone started clapping and all of that, because ये सब उनको समझ रहा है कि अरे मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ. And it is, by the way, also solving the purpose. I'm able to explain the topic also relatively easier. Having said that, there's a thin line of difference between unprofessionalism and being funny and trying to explain with the use of memes. So you don't have to cross that Lakshman Rekha. You have to be very clear. So you can use memes, but only if they are fitting into the story. So there's another topic. And by the way, I was inspired from this one guy who had presented in Indore on the same topic that I did, but his presentation was much more impactful than mine was. So the name of the topic was Deeming Provisions Under the Income Tax Act. So deeming provisions क्या होता है? The first is, in a single line, if I'm to explain you, कि dash is deemed to be this, ठीक है? Which means वो है या नहीं है, मान लिया जाता है. If the act says this is deemed to be this, मान लिया जाता है. That is called a deeming provision. ठीक है? So let's say वो stamp duty वाला एक provision 105% something. So this the value of the property is deemed to be, let's say 105% or whatever, something of that sort, right? Now that is the deeming provision. So उसने क्या किया अपने presentation में? He put some meme and he said, just like Amitabh Bachchan, you say, कह दिया ना बस कह दिया. And ये तो सिर्फ एक था, ऐसे he had like 10 memes in the presentation which were very aptly conveying the message. And then despite the topic deeming provisions being such a technical topic, people were like so impressed and understanding, more importantly. So your aim is not just to bring a smile to everyone's face, but also to make sure they attend it, and more than them being attentive, they also understand what you are trying to say. And these memes should facilitate that understanding rather than you putting it just to bring a smile on everyone's face. So it should fit in the story. ऐसा नहीं कि आप randomly कुछ भी आके बोलो. I'll give you another example over here. So, in terms of it being not, by the way, intellectual property again was a very tough topic, right? So what I did was the Ghaziabad, again in Ghaziabad, mine was the last presentation in 2 days, right? अब तो सोच सकते हो people are लोगों को जल्दी है बैग लेके घर जाने की, right? So why will anyone pay attention? इसके बाद validity session की. What I did is I started the speech by saying, so again I don't recollect it अच्छे से, but I'm just trying to recollect. So रात को किताब मुझे दिखती रही, नींद मेरी आंखों को खींचती रही. रात को किताब मेरी मुझे दिखती रही, नींद मेरी आंखों को खींचती रही. नींद का झोंका मेरे मन को मोह गया, नींद का झोंका मेरे मन को मोह गया. एक रात फिर ये सीए स्टूडेंट बिना पढ़े सो गया. And the moment I completed this, they were like, everyone was applauding and all of that, despite it being like the last presentation in the conference. That's a very good question, Hindi wala. Let me come to that. Yeah. So what happened is, ab this is nowhere related to intellectual property. Nowhere related, right? I'll tell you why. And by the way, I still said some line wo meko exactly yaad nahi hai, but I tried to say that um, I I have to give the credit to someone who's written it, because it is his or her intellectual property rather than mine, because it is not my intellectual property. And that's how I started the topic, and I started speaking on intellectual property. Understanding. So even if it is nowhere related, you try to build that bridge, you try to build it into your story so that it does not look unprofessional. Otherwise, jury might feel KR if you're making it unprofessional. So there's this thin line of difference which you'll have to make sure you don't cross. And that's what broadly I wanted to say. In fact, these are more insightful things, and I might be too ahead of myself because at the first place you are new to the concept of your presentation. But once you get into it, these are the small aspects that you might actually be confused about as to kya karna hai. So you'll have to make a PPT. It should be good looking pointers, not a lot of text on the PPT. Are general things jo PPT mein hota hai. I'm not going to the basics of it right now. And if Isha obviously wants to add, she will go ahead and add. Speech writing. Now you'll have to write your speech, but you have to make sure it is limited within time, 10 to 15 minutes, jo bhi the time limit hai. You have to practice it 50 times. And by the way, this entire thing, I just keep it short now, because I'll open the floor to questions as well, and Isha also is yet to speak. But now, once you are writing your speech, first thing is you will have to make your speech relatable. You just think of yourself in the shoes of the audience and think, will I as an audience listen to the same speech for like 10, 15 minutes? The answer should be a yes. If it is a no, then change your speech. Full stop. Nothing else. Can you read on the stage? Obviously not. You cannot. I mean, you can for the sake of it, but then does not make sense, right? If you are getting that opportunity, much rather go well prepared. And the only reason, a lot of people might ask you, how do you get so much of confidence? How do you speak in front of 1,500, 3,000, 2,000 people? The simple answer here is you practice 20, 30, 50, 100 times. वो आपको रट ही जाएगा स्पीच. एंड देन एक बार स्पीच रट जाए ना, फिर आपको स्पीच सोचनी नहीं पड़ती. A lot of public speakers or paper presenters, the problem that they have is they are underprepared, which means वो stage पे जाके speech याद कर रहे हैं. The moment you do that, ना, all the other things, whether your facial expressions, your emphasis, your pauses, all of it goes for a toss. So long as you are very well prepared, and that will come if you've practiced your speech like 50 times, then you will be able to emphasize. Emphasize bola, that is also emphasize, right? You'll be able to take pauses. You will be able to have an eye contact with the entire audience. And by the way, how do you do that? One of the faculties had told me, and by the way, I've tried that, and it's a very good way. You try to visualize a W in the audience. W as in you start from the extreme left, and you go thoda upar. ठीक है? Make an imaginary W. M मान लो, चलो आपके angle से M, उल्टा W. Then you come thoda again वापस नीचे. Then you see उधर, इधर see them. So, which means everyone will feel that you are looking into their eyes, which you are not, by the way. Don't look into anyone's eyes, otherwise that will make you super conscious. So don't do that. But broadly, just look at the entire audience so that they feel that you're looking into their eyes, right? So eye contact hona chahiye. You will not read. Emphasis is extremely important. So अब जैसे मैंने extremely बोला, that is an emphasis. अब ये जो मैंने pause लिया, that is a pause. So pauses and emphasis have their own importance because that will increase the quality of your speech. So not just is it important कि रट के आके आपने करके बोल दिया फटाफट फटाफट, वो उससे ज्यादा speaking well is more important. And then one more question is, a lot of people, and by the way, all of these are tips on speaking well. A lot of people ask me as to whether you speak from the podium or you take a wireless mic and go into the middle of the stage and speak. It's honestly a very subjective choice. Ghaziabad, I also experimented here as well. So all this while I used to speak on the podium. Ghaziabad, I went to the stage and I spoke. The thing here is I used to always prefer a podium because that helps you be stable. The moment you go into the middle of the stage and start moving, there's a higher chance that you might become nervous. Having said that, if you're already seasoned and you know, okay, nahi, meko nervousness nahi hoga, that's fine. The other aspect is when you start moving, right? A lot of times you don't realize, but you are moving a lot, which distracts the jury and the audience. The third thing is when you're moving a lot, it will distract you as well, and there's a higher tendency of you forgetting the speech. The fourth thing is, if hypothetically, let's say you're slightly nervous, आपके पैर का movement वगैरह हो रहा है, हाथ का movement हो रहा है, hands are shivering, feet are shivering, it is more visible when we are in the center of the stage versus podium के पीछे फिर भी इतना visible नहीं होगा. The last thing, which used to be my primary concern, I used to not be fair. I mean, मेरे को nervousness वगैरह का problem नहीं था. My problem used to be that more often than not, stage पे jury या speakers, so there's a session chairman, there is a session jury, so on and so forth. There's a lot of eminent speakers on the stage, including the paper presenters, by the way. The moment you go to the middle of the stage, which means you're showing your back to the jury or the session chairman, etc., which is very unprofessional. And उनको कैसे दिखेगा? उनको आपका चेहरा ही नहीं दिखेगा. So for them, just think about the experience. Very bad. Much rather speak from the podium, but this is a very subjective choice. It will also depend on the setup of the particular auditorium, stage, so on and so forth. And also the quality of the mic. Most of the times, podium ka mic is sorted. Wireless mic में आता जाता है आवाज echo होगा ये वो. So it's a risky proposition. So I mean that way. Speech delivery, your start and the end of your speech especially should be super effective. You have to time, and I give an example of what super effective here means. Practice, I told you, time the speech very well, and like आपके फ्रेंड को बोलो मेरी बैठ के स्पीच सुन, वो 5 बार सुन के कंटाल जाएगा, पर फिर भी उसको बिठाओ, उसको बोलो कि ये स्पीच सुन मेरी. I used to do that a lot, and my friends were touch wood very helpful. So that way. And so far as dressing is concerned, needless to say, it has to be absolute formal professional dressing, up to the mark, to its best. If we were having this session in person, by the way, I would have myself own professional attire, formal attire. Abhi chalo, it's a webinar and we are all benefiting from the aftermaths of COVID. So chalo, okay, let's continue to do that. Okay, so let me just, and I think the time's almost up for me. So almost over to Isha after just a couple of points. The start and the end of the speech is something that I was talking to you guys about. Actually, wait. Huh. So,
In this world, there is nothing certain except death and taxes. A very good and a pleasant morning to one and all present here. I, Devesh Arpalani from Ahmedabad, am honored to be here in the Oxford of the East, the city of knowledge and virtues, the city of Pune. Our journey for the next 12 minutes shall revolve around the topic, which in itself is a pertinent question to note. Are high income tax rates counterproductive? So let us first discuss about the term tax. Well, tax is a compulsory levy.
So basically, यहाँ पे I started with obviously my introduction and all. There are two other things. I started with the quote. There are only two things in this world that are certain, which is death and taxes. So in the context of this topic, that fits very well. So you start with a quote. You can start with anything, by the way, not just quote. I used to prefer quotes because that is easy. But then anything you can start with, which gets all the eyeballs in the audience towards you. आप normal start करोगे, अरे good morning everyone, I am Divesh, तो नहीं इतना लोग ध्यान देंगे, वो हर कोई आके वही बोल रहा है. So you'll have to speak something differently, which brings that initial attention towards you. Middle of the speech, you'll have to bring something funny, creative, related, which the audience can relate with, and that will bring their attention towards the middle of the presentation. End of the presentation especially has to be effective. You have to end on a very high tone so that people feel like, yaar, why did he stop speaking? We want to listen to him more. So, and by the way, none of this is very ideal. I'm not saying this is the benchmark. I'm just saying this is how I tried doing it. Obviously, there are people who've done it better. There could be ways to do it better. I'm just giving what I did. So now the end. Okay, this little keep this thing loading. By the way, there's this other channel also, which is in my name, Devesh Arplani, and I've uploaded all of my, not all, but most of my paper presentations there, including my national locution speech. So you guys can go ahead and just check out those. And there are a lot of other videos as well that people have added on YouTube so far as these paper presentations are concerned. So,
and a much needed move in this direction
this is fine.
with the government's policies of ease of task force, the tax revenue, but by simplifying the tax structures, by improving the tax administration, and by widening the tax base. It is concluded that taxes are inevitable for the growth of the economy, and they should be indeed levied, but they should be based on the ability to pay, and they should be only up to a certain limit. Well, Chanakya has rightly stated in his famous Arthashastra that taxes should be collected from the citizens in a manner in which a honeybee collects honey from the flowers. That is, in the right amount and without inflicting pain. Thank you all for being an excellent audience. Thank you.
Just a second. Yeah, so the point here is, and by the way, examples of pauses you saw, but bola maine, that was an emphasis, right? That was also a pause. The other thing is, I quoted Chanakya towards the end, so very relatable, where I said, in a manner in which a honeybee collects honey from the flowers, that is in the right amount and without inflicting pain. So, again, emphasis. So you start should be super effective. Your end should be super effective in such a manner that, people really feel, okay, yeah, this guy made a point, an event. So your speech has to be built in such a manner that the start and end are super effective. Somewhere in the middle, it has to be very relatable, funny, so that you don't lose the attention of the audience, which by the way is very easy to lose because that's 15 minutes. No matter how much you try, there will be people who will be not listening to you. But you have to make sure, even if 10% of the audience, even if 5% of the audience has listened to your entire 10 15 minutes, na, aapka kaam vasool gaya, because it is super difficult to have people to listen to your entire thing. The other thing is, these are very, very small things, very, funny aspects. So get someone to record your speech once you are on the stage, yaar, because it is a memory for lifetime. Why not? Go ahead after your speech, get a feedback from your fellow paper presenters, what you did right, what you did wrong. Ye feedback pehle bhi lena, but especially after presenting. Try to get a feedback from the judges if they are open to it. If not, then fine. And last but not the least from my side, if not selected, please don't get disheartened, because there are 40 conferences per annum that happen. Abhi to chalo, articleship 2 साल का हो गया, पहले 3 साल का था, there used to be 40 into 3 opportunities that you would ideally get, and ऐसे भी साल में आप 2 पेपर present कर सकते हो. So the only thing that you have to do is, and 40 by the way, so 40 conferences, 15 topics on an average, 20 भी हो सकता है कुछ में तो. So 40 cross 50 में 600 papers get presented per annum, and you have to get selected only for 2. So your probability is 2 by 600. It's actually not 2 by 600, it's actually 2 by 40, because आप एक conference के 15 में तो paper नहीं भेजोगे, but then just virtually speaking, every year you have to just get selected for 5%. अरे एक भी हो गया per annum तो भी क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Try for both, if not at least one. So there'll be, at least for the initial first time now, it is difficult to get selected because you don't have a past experience, etc. But maybe start small, start with Vasai, and then you can obviously, and sorry, start small. Vasai is not small. I was not talking in that context, but try with your home branch first, because that's easier. And then, because the audience is known, it's easier to get selected that way. And then obviously you can go to a different city and present. And by the way, the other benefit is go through papers of different paper presenters. One of the souvenirs I will share in general, देख लो Google पे मिलता है नहीं मिलता है, I'm not sure. Okay, so now by the way, the most crucial part, why should you do any of this? इतना मेहनत क्यों कर रहा है? आपको कुछ मिलेगा तो बहुत कुछ मिलेगा. Number one, you get an experience of a lifetime speaking in front of 150 to 3,500 people. That is one. The second thing is, you really get something to write on a CV. I never did any of this for CV, but obviously that helps. I used to do it because I used to love speaking, and that is the reason I'm taking this webinar, not that I'm getting paid for it, right? The third thing is, you get to meet a lot of people, which, for example, Isha is from Faridabad, I'm from Ahmedabad, right now in Mumbai. How did we meet? In national locution. In the matter of last 6, so I've presented paper in 6 conferences, 1 international, Sri Lanka in addition, plus national locution. So across all of these, I have met people from at least 50 different cities of India. See, students from at least 50 different cities of India. and 4 other countries apart from India, including Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Pakistan also. All of met them in Sri Lanka. Point here is now if I actually want to go to any city whatsoever, I'm actually planning a trip to the northeast. So I wanted to get my itinerary validated. I have people on my phone who I can call, and I was like, "Arey yaar, ye validate karke de de," because they are from that region. Any city I go to, I always have someone to meet because so many people have built that network. In fact, not a lot of you now would know about Drummer, but Drummer Jain was AIR 1 Jan 21 CA final. Similarly, Akshat Goyal was AIR 1 CA Inter May 19 and AIR 2 CA final May 22. Up ranks and all don't matter. But the reason I'm saying this is for you to relate. These folks, all of these folks, a lot of other folks I met in conference and turned out to be some of the best of the friends. We've made a lot of trips together, so on and so forth. The point is, you'll have number one memories for life. You'll also have a lot of network and very crucial good network. Both as a friend and professionally also going ahead, you will be able to leverage a lot of this. So all of this to hey. And last but not the least, a lot of things that I might also miss and Isha will cover. But last but not the least, you'll get a lot of nice pictures like this one. So I really love this picture, and it's been a memory of the lifetime for me. This is from Vadodara CA Students Conference 2021, just a month before my CA final results. So a lot of pictures. So I have at least one very nice picture from each of the conference that I attended, more than one actually, but go ahead. So that's it from my end. I don't think I have anything else to say, but except for I quickly just answer a few questions that are there in the chat box, and Isha has a lot of other things to share with you. So Isha, I'll just hand it over to you. Yeah, so okay. Your articleship ended in 30th November. So are you eligible to present papers in December 23? That's a very good question. All I will say is, so it's okay. So a lot of people, not sure about Isha, but I think Isha also, no, not Isha, but a lot of people who even present their papers after their CA final results. So there are two logical explanations to this, but again, it could be debatable. I did not do that, by the way. मेरा CA final result के पहले था, बाद में नहीं था. So one is, even when you get your CA final result, technically you're not a CA yet because आपका articleship ideally चल रहा रहता है, right? एक आध महीना बाद में खत्म होता है result के. That is one. So only after your articleship is over and you apply for membership do you become a CA. So that is one thing. But it's a one explanation. Although you're still a CA, you know that. The other logical explanation here is eligibility is seen as on the day on which you send your paper for selection, not on the day of the conference, which by the way is accepted by BOS as well, is what I've heard. Not that I've spoken to them in this regard, I never had to. So in that context, if you're sending your paper before 30th November, which you most likely will, then that way you should be ideal to present papers in December. But then ultimate decision is in the hands of the branch. If they don't mind you, it's fine. PDF, I said I will send it. Can you attend a conference anywhere in India? Yes. An international conference. So the eligibility is literally the same for international versus national conferences, except for international conference could be your third conference versus usually you can present only twice a year. International can be your third conference if you have won best paper presentation award. And when I say, by the way, best paper presentation, not in a session, but overall conference में best paper presentation award, and that should have been a national CA students conference. So you should have won an overall. So अब क्या करोगे अगर है ही session wise best, you cannot do anything. Overall में अगर आपने best जीता है, and that is a national CA students conference, then you become eligible for international being your third conference. So yes, it is there in Ahmedabad. By the way, Ahmedabad ka spelling is AHMED, Ahmedabad. Everyone makes this mistake, and Ahmedabad is close to my heart, so I keep pointing out. So next is Hindi, whether that is allowed. Ideally not, because it's supposed to be super professional. But few words here and there, few quotes here and there, it's fine. I mean, and no one will hold you for it. If you thoda bahut chalta hai, if you want to get attention of people towards you, that's fine. You have to send paper, but you have to present PPT in the conference. Extremely correct. You have to send a paper for selection, but PPT will be presented in the conference. You can watch videos में हर जगह PPT present किया हुआ है. Both opening and closing were very impressive. Thank you so much. Where can we get the papers of previous paper presenters? Yeah, I have a few of these souvenirs. I'll have to actually look up for them. I've actually changed my phone, so it's difficult. But मैं देखता हूँ अगर मेरे पास और souvenirs है तो I'll send you. But in fact, this one PDF that I was showing, उसमें भी 20 paper है. So there's a lot of these for inspiration. and not that आपको copy paste करना है. You just need for inspiration. है तो 20 papers are more than enough. What should introduction video look like? Yeah, simple. मतलब not that any of it. You start with a quote or anything. It should be an impressive start. You introduce yourself, where you from, which city, why have you chosen this topic, what all are you looking to cover, just about that topic, speak about the topic for a minute or so, the other aspects. If there is a question, let's say our income tax. So our high income tax rate is counterproductive was my topic. So let's say answer it in affirmative or negative in that introductory video itself, and giving like a 2-line explanation on why. 8 others on that Sri Lanka itinerary. Oh, Arvind Sarvangi is also a part of this. Hey, Arvind, hi. Yes, yes, yes. So, in fact, by the way, as a matter of fact, not just do you get to go to Sri Lanka, but you also, I know people who attended the conference with you. For the next 3-4 years, all those going to Sri Lanka, you'll know. So, Arvind is one of those people. Arvind, by the way, you can turn on your video if you are still there. But yeah. The name of the presenter on Code of Ethics, Tabish Hassan. Let me type his name. TABISHHASSAN. उसका वीडियो यार है कि नहीं? Actually, let me send out his 27-second video if I have that. But otherwise, I don't think he has put his presentation का video on YouTube. Thanks, Satan. How is the best paper presenter selected? What are the metrics used by jury? यार उस सब पे मत जाओ. But ठीक है. See, one is strength of the topic, because ultimately it is a very paper presentation and it's not an elocution. So your topic is what demands the. Elocution भी important है, but especially paper presentation में 50 marks तो आपके content के लिए ही होते हैं. Then others is gaining audience attention, speaking with confidence, fluency, command over language, eye contact, so on and so forth. So normally just public speakers evaluate होते हैं, but content being the most important. Your session answers all of my doubts for conference. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad it does. Listening in office on a Sunday inside a meeting room. Very good, Arvind. But I don't know why did you have to do this, but never mind. Will you send your PPT link on the WhatsApp group? यार PPTs ना any which ways if you see my videos उसमें PPT होगा ही, so I think that should be sufficient. And PDF I will send out. Baki actually before I hand it over to Isha, Khyati, Rupali, Shambhavi, Jainam, whosoever wants to just come in and talk about your conference for like a minute or two. What are the dates? What are the timelines? If you have the flyer ready, if you want to just flash it, आधे पेपर प्रेजेंटर्स तो आपको इसी सेशन से मिल जाएंगे, शायद सारे ही मिल जाए आपको. Whoever wants to. यार देखो बहुत अच्छा मार्केटिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी है, तो कोई तो कर लो. इतना अच्छा दे रहा हूँ अपॉर्चुनिटी, फिर भी नहीं कर रहे हो यार. Go
Okay,
ahead, Kathy.
so Vasai branch is having its mega conference on 2nd and 3rd of December. So we have already released our paper presentations topic. So we have made the flyers and we will show you that after the end of the session. We will also share with you the guidelines for the same. And not just Vasai branch, this paper presentation session is conducted on behalf of all the branches that are going to have their conference, regional, national, or international conference, majorly in the month of November and December. So on behalf of all the branches, you can present your paper not just in Vasai branch, but also in all the branches that you are comfortable with. So we will be sharing the topics very soon after the end of this session, and we will also release that in the WhatsApp group.
Perfect. Thanks a ton, Khyati. And I do share out on the WhatsApp group. I'm sure a lot of people will be looking. And guys, please do participate in at least this conference, but also a lot of these conferences beyond this. There are a lot of other, I think, Isha, one thing that you should definitely cover, which I haven't covered, is you should talk about all the different competitions that exist under the umbrella of ICI or CA associations, because not just in conference, people should keep participating in others as well. Over to Isha. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'll have to drop. But thanks, Wicasa Vasai, for giving this opportunity again, and always grateful to you guys. And I'm sure, or I at least hope, people would have benefited out of this session. So keep organizing sessions like these where people can participate. Thanks everyone for joining on a Sunday morning. Have a good Sunday and hope India wins today. Bye bye.
Thank you, Divesh sir. I would like to invite Naman to give a vote of thanks to you. Naman, the floor is yours.
Yeah, what a super insightful session it was. The participants have already flooded the chatbots with their responses. They have left me speechless. I would like to thank CA Divesh Harpalani sir for taking time away from their curriculum to allow students to hear his words. This assembly would have been impossible without your support. I'm sure all of us have learned a lot of things that we weren't aware of before. Thank you so much. Thank you again on behalf of Vasai Wicasa and all the participants. It was our pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks again. Thanks again. Have a good Sunday. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would like to invite
Thanks,
CA
Atal.
Isha Verna ma'am for the part 2 of our session. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. Quickly, can you drop down in the chat box from which region you belong to and which stage of CA curricula you are into, like CA inter and what city? Everyone, please. Okay. I want most of you to participate. At least I'll have an idea of where the audience is from. Okay. Nice. Okay. So yeah, I got so many responses. Actually, I met with a medical emergency and I thought of not taking the session, but then I decided that somehow I have to be there because this is something conferences, and talking about conferences has been one of the very, 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 very close topics to my heart and to my personality as well. Yeah. So I'll just give you a gist of how I was and how conference and participating into ICI events have changed me. So if I today say right now on the face that I've always been a very shy kid, a very introvert kid, and someone who always feared to be on the stage, I'm very sure so many of you might be saying कि ईशा अब तो आप successful हो गए हो, तो एक back story तो चाहिए, तो आप कुछ नहीं मिला तो कुछ भी डाल दो that you are an introvert and all that. But that has always been my case. And if you just search on the YouTube and watch a few of my very old videos, you'll see me trembling on the stage. You'll see me shivering on the stage, going blank on the stage, and being nervous all the time. And then if you see my recent videos, you'll realize there's a vast difference between my personality, who I was earlier, and what I have gained through these conferences and events of ICAI. So basically, I think Devesh has quite a bit covered the topic very well, and you all have an overall idea of what conference looks like. I'll summarize all the points that Devesh has mentioned, and then I'll be adding a few more points, and that will be very close to my own experiences. So firstly, in any conferences, the conferences are of three types. One is the mega conference, one is the regional conference, and one is again the international conference, right? Sorry, one is the regional, one is the national, and one is the international conference. Now, regional or the mega conference is at a little smaller level. The national is at a bigger level, and the international is at a bigger level. But इसमें और कोई difference नहीं है. Neither in the eligibility criteria, not in the experiences that you will be gaining, not in the paper presentation and everything out. The first step in a conference is you can be participant of conference in two types. Like you can be the audience or you can be the paper presenter. For audience, you just have to register, pay the fees, and go there and be the part of the audience. You'll learn a lot from the sessions in the conferences. There will be many speakers, many big personalities as well. Now I've seen I've seen that ICI has started even calling big big people like for the conferences. Yes, I am going to share everything, right? Okay. So yeah. So as an audience, you'll get to learn a lot from what is happening in the conference. And as a paper presenter, you'll be able to work upon your speaking skills, your communication skills, your presentation skills, and so many other things on the stage. Now, for paper presentation, you have to do one thing is first give your paper. And once your paper is selected, then only you can be on the stage to present the paper. Okay, now how to write the paper, how to cover the topics, and everything has been taken up by Devesh very well. So I won't be getting into all that. So you first submit the paper. Once you get selected, you will be on the stage and present the topic using a PPT, right? And as an audience, there's no other compulsion. You can just register, pay the fees, and be to the place where the conferences are happening. Okay. Now, if I talk about my experiences, okay, now again, I want something in the chat box, and that is how many of you here is afraid of speaking on the stage or has that stage fear or, has that, uh, uh, all the nervousness going on by thinking of being on the stage or speaking in front of 50 people, 1,000 people. Quickly comment down. Shy, nervousness. Yes, yes, yes. You can direct message me if you don't want to be on the everyone's face. Okay.
Isha ma'am, sorry to interrupt, but one second.
Uh-huh.
Mihir wants to give your introduction. वैसे nobody needs your introduction, but just for the sake, Mihir, please be on the stage.
No, I'll just take one more minute. You can continue after that. So, CA Isha Verma is a chartered accountant and a Master of Commerce from Delhi University by qualification. She has worked with the Institute of Integrated Learning and Management in the finance department. She has been a part-time educator with an academy even before she qualified her CA finals. She cleared a CA finals in May 2023, and her CA journey has been really inspiring as she cleared her CA foundations in a mere 25 days of preparation. She cleared her intermediate exams in one go and cleared her CA finals while battling with dengue. And all of this while having a regular college to attend. Other than her academic achievements, she is also a professional Kathak dancer. Isha started with her Kathak journey 7 years before her most remarkable achievement when she performed Kathak before the Ministry of Law and Justice of Government of India. She won the Best Paper Presentation Award for her presentation at CA Students National Conference at Puri, Orissa, and Faridabad, Haryana. She is even an educator. She has taught a number of students through Unacademy and other platforms. She has been called as a guest speaker by the Gurugram branch of NIRC of ICAI to guide CA students on their preparation for CA exams and related strategies. And that's not all. She is even a content creator, successfully running her YouTube channel with more than 10,000 subscribers and more than 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. That's too much to be asked from a single person. But our today's guest, CA Isha Verma, carries each of her role ever more gracefully than the other one. Words would fall short to describe the truly amazing and inspiring personality of our next speaker. But let me do it in her own way. That is, she is a chartered accountant, a professional Kathak dancer, a content creator, a educator, and a public speaker. That is all from my side. I would now call CA Isha Verma to take the center stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mehir. And there's so many things that I did not send to Rupali. I don't know how you got it. Thank you so much for such a beautiful introduction. Now let me come back to the topic of how I achieved, I came over my stage fear and how first presentation and how the recent presentation had a massive change. Okay, so I've never been that person entire in my school life, in my college life. I've never been that person who was always the first bencher or even the last bencher. Because first bencher पे सबका ध्यान रहता है because they are the best students, and last bencher पे because they are the naughtiest. Now, the middle one are always ignored. And throughout my life, I've been that middle benchers. And that is why, I've never been pushed by my teachers to participate in events or be on the stage, speak a lot. But when it came to dancing, I loved it so much. Even if you ask me to dance right now, without any preparation, I would go on the stage. There would be 5,000 students, no matter, no nervousness, and I would love to dance. The few things that I learned from my experience of dancing, and I correlated with that on the stage while I was speaking. Now, number one, when I was dancing, I used to look into the eyes of the audience, and that is what I adopted when I started speaking on the stage. It's very important to look into the eyes of the audience. Do not look it for a longer period of time, because that may distract you. Give an eye view that is like very subtle, and even like you are trying to engage, but you're not stuck. Okay. Secondly, while dancing, it happens like sometimes your jhumka falls down, right? Your mamtika falls down. There's so many distractions that happens while you dance. You have to ignore all those distractions. So when you are on this stage, you have to ignore distractions that are happening in the audience. Some might be running, some might be walking, some might be laughing, some might be, clicking selfies, and all those might distract you. You might think that your content, your speech is not good or not well, and you might get the nerves there. Ki mera speech, nobody is listening, right? So you have to ignore all those facts. And I learned this from my dance. And I would love all of you to write it, because I do not have a PPT made, just because I wasn't doing it all well, and you just see how down I look. Okay, so just write down. Number one is to have an eye contact with the audience, and number two is to ignore what is happening in the audience. You have to ignore. These are the two things that I learned from my dancing. Okay, now when it comes to how can you be a better public speaker on the stage, because even if I talk about paper presentations, there are 20 people, around 20 people who will present on the stage. How can you be the best among the rest? For that, I have, 5 points to make a presentation the best presentation of among all of the other presenters. Okay, number one is a good introduction. If I talk about myself, I will always start with some quote, some shlok, and for example, if I'm going to give a speech in suppose Punjab, so I may use some quote which is in the Punjabi language, but not a very common or very informal. If I am in the northern region, I would use some quote which is from Sanskrit. I would use the local language that to start the session. The reason why, because once you are starting this, start to speak, that is the point where the audience will decide whether they want to hear you for a longer period of time or not. So if you start with something that is something that they could relate, or something that is very unique, they would love to listen to you for at least the next 2 to 3 minutes. It's very difficult to have the audience listen to you for the next 15 minutes in the entire presentation, but at least for the first few minutes, you can grab their attention. And what I used to do was, in my entire speech, I used to give those points in between. तो पहले मेरा starting point होता था, that could be some very good shlok to grab the attention, and in the middle of the speech there will be some pointers, some demonstration that will again regain the regain all the attention back into my speech, and in the end again I'll have something for the audience. So entire speech में आपको ऐसे punches देने पड़ेंगे so that you can have the audience. Now if you watch some series or something, what happens after the end of every episode, they leave you with some curiosity, right? So that you have to watch the next episode instantly, or you just have the feeling of watching the next episode as soon as possible. So that is what you have to keep on doing on the stage to have the attention. Now you don't have to do it too much, and you don't have to do it too less. Never talk about the presentations. So as I told you, I've never been that person entire my school life or my college life who has been speaking and giving speeches, participating in debates. And that is the reason why I just participated in 1 or 2 conferences in ICI, and then my articleship and my CE exams got over. But I've learned a lot from those 2 events of ICI, of conferences, but all other events, I was there. So I've been the winner of the National Talent Hunt as well. And in that also, I've learned a lot, many things of presenting myself. The first time when I went on the stage to present a paper, I was literally blank. Okay, so I went on the stage, saw so many people sitting, and the moment I wanted to start with the speech, I forgot how to start it, what to speak in between, and somehow kuch karke na, wo jo bhi प्रेजेंटेशन में दिख रहा था, जो भी दिख रहा था, कुछ कुछ करके मैंने स्पीच एंड कर दिया एंड आई न्यू कि मैं तो इसके आगे कभी जाऊंगी नहीं, इसके आगे मुझसे कुछ नहीं होगा, ठीक है. एंड देन आई हैड दिस फीलिंग कि Isha, you are already a good dancer. You are good in, good in studies. You are doing CA, doing very well. Why do you even want to speak on the stage? There is no need of speaking on the stage. Leave it. Never do it again. That was my first decision. So I thought I will never be speaking on the stage again because I actually fear the stage a lot. So I thought, नहीं, अब तो मैं participate ही नहीं करूँगी इसके बाद. But then I thought, if I don't fight this fear right now, I'll always have to live with that fear throughout my journey, right? Throughout my career, I'll have that feeling that I cannot be a good speaker on the stage. So to fight that fear, I started participating in all the events of ICI. So be it elocution contests, be it conferences, be it every other CA conferences, I started participating, I started giving papers, and इससे क्या हुआ कि धीरे 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 whatever fear I had in my mind, my heart, my soul, it started vanishing and I started loving the stage. And that is how I conquered a new thing. So, what is a good or a very bad thing about my character is I will never say no to a new opportunity. So, similarly, An Academy offered me a role of educator while I was myself a CA student. तो सीए स्टूडेंट को उन्होंने एजुकेटर का रोल दिया एंड जस्ट इमेजिन एज अ स्टूडेंट मेरे पास कितना प्रेशर था. आई हैड टू डू माय ओन स्टडीज, आई हैड टू रन माय ओन यूट्यूब चैनल एंड आई वाज आल्सो वर्किंग. So there were so many things that I already had on my head. And when this offer from Unacademy came, I was extremely, nervous to say yes to it. But then I knew कि अगर अभी yes नहीं बोला तो क्या पता अगली बार ना मिले. And I said a yes. And ना वो ना नहीं बोलना has been a big boon to me, and that Unacademy experience has given me a lot. I've learned a lot of technical things as well as an educator, how to run the laptops and apps. So the first thing is you should have this in your head that how many cities did you apply. So if I talk about my conferences, I actually was participating into the national talent hunt. तो पहले नेशनल टैलेंट हंट्स होते हैं, एलोक्यूशन कंटेस्ट, डिबेट कॉन्टेस्ट, तो मैं वो सारी चीजों में करती थी. एंड एक होता है ना, जब करते करते मैंने जैसे बताया कि आई यूज्ड टू फियर अ लॉट ऑन द स्टेज, एंड वंस आई लर्नड द आर्ट ऑफ स्पीकिंग ऑन द स्टेज, आई लव्ड इट एंड स्टार्टेड एंजॉयिंग इट. So once I started enjoying it, मैं जहां जाती थी ना वहां जीत जाती. So I was already a known face कि यार ये तो एलोक्यूशन की विनर रह चुकी है नेशनल टैलेंट हंट पे, ये तो यहाँ भी जीत चुकी है, ये तो डांस में भी जीत चुकी है. So the moment I gave my first paper, that was only selected. क्योंकि वो नाम था मेरा, एक ब्रांड था मेरा, ऑफ कोर्स जो चीजें मैंने सीखी थी वो मेरे पेपर प्रेजेंटेशन, मेरे पेपर में दिख रहा था. So my video which I gave for audition, that also reflected my personality. So मैं सिर्फ कॉन्फ्रेंस की बात करूँ तो कॉन्फ्रेंस मैंने सिर्फ एंड में पार्टिसिपेट किया है, लेकिन उससे पहले मैंने बहुत सारे इवेंट्स में पार्टिसिपेट किया है. एंड दैट इज व्हाई दिवेश इन द एंड टोल्ड मी कि तुम बाकी इवेंट्स के बारे में भी बता के जाना, बिकॉज आई हैव बीन पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन ऑल द अदर इवेंट्स अ लॉट. एंड कॉन्फ्रेंस की बात करें तो क्या हुआ, जैसी मतलब आई बिल्ट माई पर्सनैलिटी, वो चीजें आपके अंदर आ जाती है, वो सीखने को आप जब बोलोगे तो आपकी लैंग्वेज में आती है. सो वंस it so the first paper that I sent was selected, and I think I gave two papers and both of them were selected just because it reflected in my personality, reflected in my videos, it reflected in the way I wrote the papers. But before that, I faced a lot of failures, but not in the conferences, but in the PPT presentation, in the debate competitions, in the elocution competition, so many other things. बाकी चीजें भी होती है. Conference is not just one thing because today's topic is just related to conference. So we were just focusing much more on the conference. I'll show you a video of mine and how I started. Let me see if I can just share my video. Just see this.
Has to hunt for it. सिद्धन्ति कार्याणि न मनोरथे न हि सुप्तस्य सिंहस्य प्रविशन्ति मुखे मृगा. Have you seen a deer coming and entering the mouth of a lion on its own? Well, no. The lion has to hunt for it. The lion has to work hard. Similarly, success comes only through endurance and hard work, and hence the theme of the day. Success is not given, it is earned. Good evening, respected dignitaries.
Okay, so that is how I think I'm audible, and I hope the video was also visible. So that is how I started the speech on the conference, like the paper presentation. So I always start with some slok, some very formal, and I keep my entire speech very formal. I've never used memes, I've never used jokes, because I think as a chartered accountant, मेरे को ऐसा लगता है that could be a different personality and different perception. So as a chartered, you are representing a future chartered accountant, and then you are using some very basic memes that are viral on the internet. So that did not fit me. It could fit someone else. So I never used memes and everything. I made it very technical yet very engaging. So doesn't mean that a technical session could not be an engaging session. For example, again, now, the first thing is always a good introduction. The second thing is always to have a very good go-to-go structure. Now, your audience is not aware about the topic entirely. So, उसे नहीं पता आप क्या topic के बारे में बात कर रहे हो, and he is not, the audience is not very much, aware of the entire technicalities about the topic. So, you have to keep the structure very easy. You have to go with the flow. Start with introducing the topic. Go with very basic definitions of the topic. For example, I spoke on the audit, and why I chose audit, because audit was my field during articleship, and it was related to the digital era. So during COVID period, there was a lot of digital things happening, right? Even the virtual meeting that we are into is happening because of COVID, right? So how audit can be adapted with digital era, that was my topic which I chose. Now, to be very intelligent with choosing the topic, because that will give you a lot of confidence, and for confidence you need a lot of knowledge. So confidence will come only if you have knowledge. I've seen many people who just show off they are confident, but actually confidence only comes with knowledge. So for that, you have to go with a topic that you are very comfortable with. So I went with topic of auditing, and I explained how audit can, what is audit, and then I talked about what is digital era, and then I talked about how audit can happen in the digital era, and I even spoke about some of the few measures taken by the recent government. So if you talk about the measures, the digital, India campaign, and so many things, you have to add relevant GK things as well to make your presentation different. And in between the entire speech, there is one demonstration also जहाँ पे मैंने show किया है how auditing in normal era and how auditing in digital era cannot be a very difficult thing for chartered accountant, because they are somewhere on the very same thing. I showed it by using an example of a torn note and a very newly printed note. So I showed this is also a note and this is also a 10 rupees note. Now this is a torn note, but also the value still is of 10 rupees, and this is a very fresh note, and yet the value is still 10 rupees. So that is the case. No matter how many advances come into the organization and everywhere, chartered accountants won't lose their value, just as the notes. So that is how I used a punch in between my entire speech, and then I again went on explaining the topic, and in the end I again ended with some quote ki adaptation is a good thing or something ऐसे करके मैंने end करा था. So you all always have to have a very good to go flow. पहले आप start करेंगे बहुत basic चीजों से, उसको अच्छे से explain करेंगे, and then you will have a good conclusion. So that was about the second point in your presentation, जो आप which you have to adapt and have it in your speeches or even the research papers that you will be submitting. So even the research papers that I submitted, it has a proper structure. So it had an introduction, it had a very explanation of the topic for the next 2 to 3 pages, and lastly it had a conclusion. And in the conclusion I also had given my own viewpoints, right? So you tried to personally relate to the viewpoints that you have taken the topics. Again, choosing a topic that interests you a lot will help you a lot again. Okay. So that was about 2 elements that I spoke till now. I'll be speaking about 5 elements as I mentioned you. The first is the introduction. The second is the easy to go structure of your speech or your research paper, which is very important. Now, thirdly is your body language. Your body language matters a lot. Now, when you are on the stage and if you see the other person, like when you are in the audience, if you see the person on the stage, you don't know what that person has prepared for, you don't know what that person is going to speak. What you will be judging on the basis is how the person is standing, how the person is speaking, how the person is smiling, and does everything seem okay. You don't know the content of that person, right? Now this is something again which I related with my own dancing experience. So kya hota tha, dance karte karte na sometimes you slip and you fall, right? Sometimes you even forget the steps. So that used to happen with me a lot many times. So I once what happened, I slipped on the stage. Now the moment I slipped, I made that slipping portion as a new step on the stage, because the audience did not know that slipping was not a part of my practice, right? So audience को नहीं पता आपने क्या prepare किया है. Audience doesn't know आपने क्या तैयारी की है. But you should be prepared कि अगर आपसे कुछ गड़बड़ हुआ तो आप उसे वहीं पे ऐसे cover up कर सकते हैं कि वो चीजें लगे नहीं कि गड़बड़ है. So once I slipped on the stage while dancing, I made it into a step, and it never seemed very obvious to the audience that I forgot the step or I slipped on the stage. So that is what you have to even adopt while speaking on the stage. So sometimes it's a very natural thing that you will forget the content. Now don't try to recall कि उसके बाद क्या था. तुम्हें next जो भी याद है वो बोल दो, ठीक है? So जो भी याद है वो बोल दो, and आगे की चीजें अपने आप फिर संभल जाएंगे. आगे क्या करना है, अगर आपका कंटेंट कम में खत्म हो गया, कम टाइम में खत्म हो गया, डजंट मैटर मच, ठीक है? सो बॉडी लैंग्वेज इज द थर्ड थिंग दैट यू हैव टू वर्क अपॉन, एंड फॉर दैट यू हैव टू प्रैक्टिस अ लॉट. आई यूज्ड टू रिकॉर्ड अ लॉट ऑफ माय वीडियोस and to practice. So I used to keep my phone and then record a lot. A lot. Like 10 times I at least used to practice before going on the stage. And practice is something that you will need in the initial stages. So क्या होता था? As I told you that initially I used to forget contents on the stage. तो मैंने ना रट के स्टेज पे जाना शुरू किया. ठीक है, अब कोई एक इंसान अगर फियर को फाइट कर रहा है तो वो हर तरीके से कोशिश करता है कि वो जीत जाए, वो बस उस डर को निकाले. तो मैंने रट के स्टेज पे जाना शुरू किया. टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट, दिस इज माय ओन एक्सपीरियंस एंड दैट इज व्हाई आई एम शेयरिंग विथ यू ऑल. तो मैंने रट के वो स्पीच जाके स्टेज पे शुरू किया देना. एंड इनिशियली सारे स्पीचेस मैं रट के देती थी लिटरली. पर एंड में क्या हुआ, जब मैंने अपने स्टेज फियर को फाइट कर लिया, जब मुझे स्टेज पे जाने से डर नहीं लगने लगा, जब सब कुछ सही हो गया, तब मैं सिर्फ कुछ पॉइंट्स याद करके जाती थी. दीज आर द 5 पॉइंट्स दैट आई विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट. एंड उस 5 पॉइंट्स के सब पॉइंट्स ये है जो मैं बात करूंगी, और फिर वो जाके स्पीच पे स्टेज पे नेचुरली आ जाता है. So first point to everyone who fears the stage is कि आप stage fear को fight करो, gain that confidence on the stage, and for that you have to be on the stage, speak anything, and just try to learn from every experience you get. The first experience and the second experience, will always be better than the first. The third will be always better than the second. The fourth will always be better than third. So this learning curve that you will be getting to know only if you try to figure out to fight what you are lacking and gain what you are lacking. So the personality that I have right now is something that I will own to ICI. Okay, but I've been into a very good school, I've been into a very good college, but I've never developed so much as in what ICAI has given me. लोग कहते हैं ना कि CA में students ज्यादा सिर्फ पढ़ते हैं और उनकी पर्सनालिटी डेवलप नहीं होती है। MBAs आर सो डिफरेंट। एंड मेरे लाइफ में बहुत ही उल्टा केस है। मैं बहुत अच्छे स्कूल से थी, मैं बहुत अच्छे कॉलेज से थी, आई वाज इन द टॉप कॉलेजेस ऑफ दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी, बट आई नेवर लर्न हाउ टू हैव अ गुड पर्सनालिटी। जो भी सीखा है मैंने वो ICI के इवेंट से सीखा है, और मेरे लिए वही है। अगर मैंने CA नहीं किया होता, I would have been the same old shy introvert nervous kid who always feared being on the stage and who always loved being in the backlights। ऑडियंस में ही रहते हैं ना, स्टेज पे क्यों जाना है, ये सबका ही रहता है ना, मेरा भी वही था कि ऑडियंस में ही रहते हैं, स्टेज पे क्यों जाना है। बट देन you have to take that first step. So conferences, conferences are very important to be participating into. Like, I am very much glad about this, that I took the steps of participating in ISA events and conferences. That has changed me